Online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, and I guess Tom Homan's words from last week's press conference when he made landfall in Minneapolis are not going to be heeded by the left, talking specifically about toning down the rhetoric in the direction of ICE and CBP, stopping the demonization. Well, not only are they not stopping the demonization, they're doubling down on it, coming just short of open advocacy for violence against ICE agents. It's really remarkable, and it's going to end badly, just as Homan predicted, and it did, with the shooting deaths of both Renee Good and Alex Preddy. To borrow from Shakespeare, as I have said previously, violent delights have violent ends. Friar Lawrence to Romeo. Violent delights have violent ends. Jerry Nadler, Mr. Sardonicus, saying this in a House committee hearing.
But what is really the major problem in this country today is the fascism in our streets. The attacks on American citizens by masked hoodlums. If you were attacked by a masked person, you might think you were being kidnapped. You'd be justified in shooting the person to protect yourself. But we see people being shot for what? For driving a car? We see people, the ICE goons break into people's homes without a warrant. We see them drag out a man, an American citizen, in his underwear without even permitting him in the snow, without even permitting him to get dressed. This is the major problem we have today, along with the attack on our elections. We saw last week.
Mm-hmm. You'd be justified in shooting one of these hoodlums, ICE agents, one of these goons, justified in shooting them because they're disappearing people, they're kidnapping people. Came just short of open advocacy for violence. Rogelio Martinez, let's go coast to coast here. Rogelio Martinez is a mayoral candidate in Long Beach, California. Here's what he posted online.
My name is Rogelio Martinez. I am calling all 55 gangs in my beautiful city. I expect a gang leader from every gang, all 55 gangs, and I'm not going to name them by name, but I'm calling the Latino gangs. I'm calling the Cambodian gangs. I'm calling the Filipino gangs. I'm calling the black gangs. I'm calling the Pacific Islander gangs. I'm calling all gang leaders to meet me right here, Long Beach City Hall, this coming Monday. Why Monday? Specifically, I need you to be here to meet me in person to take back this city. Because our leadership is not doing anything about it, and our police are powerless. Once again, let me be very clear. My name is Rogelio Martinez, your 2026 Long Beach City Mayor, and I need your help. I need to see 55 gang leaders here this coming Monday.
Well, Long Beach could look forward to Mayor Rogelio Martinez partnering not with federal law enforcement, but with street gangs. That's going to be the 2 or 3.0, I don't know which 0.0 we're on here, iteration of the left's posture towards federal law enforcement. For more on this topic, and a very good piece that she wrote for City Journal inside Minneapolis's ICE Watch Network. You know, the all those graduates of Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flannan's School of Training Lawful Observers? Because that's what we see. We're pleased to be joined by Christina Buttons. She is a investigative reporter at the Manhattan Institute. Christina, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Hi. Morning. Thanks so much for having me.
Give us the answer to who watches the watchers or who observes the quote unquote legal observers is apparently you. Give us a handle on these much touted legal observers that are following ICE agents around or attempting to.
Well, I think that there is a difference between how they sort of purport themselves to be and what they actually are. There's a group that calls itself Defend the 612, and they purport themselves to be this organic, spontaneous, decentralized community effort, who are just, exercising their First Amendment rights to document law enforcement. But what's really going on is quite different. I mean, the ICE Watch model didn't arise organically. It was implemented there by well-funded professional activists, and it's being implemented in other cities too, where there's been a heavy ICE presence.
And Defend the 612. So give us a sense of sort of what they do, what they're communicating, whether it's through some of these signal groups that have apparently been hacked into, or through their website, hand to hand on the streets. How does it work, functionally?
Right. So the organizers of Defend the 612, these were, local activists who are already involved in nonprofits. They connected with national organizers, and they offer trainings on their website weekly or sometimes more. I joined January 8th after Renee Good was killed because I was curious to learn, how someone could get involved in this movement. And it was quite concerning. This was the day after she died. No one at any point, this was one of their own, said, don't do what she did. Put your personal safety first. That just never happened. Instead, they downplayed the risks involved. They said, oh, well, there's some physical risks involved in what Renee was doing, but the biggest risk of all is to do nothing. They used her death to recruit more people. They delegitimized law enforcement. They encouraged noncompliance with law enforcement. They encouraged people to stretch their willingness to take risks. I think what they're doing is extremely dangerous. And now they're trying to hide their identities and hide the fact that this is, organized by a central group of people.
When you say encouraging noncompliance with officers, do they get into detail about that?
They do. They said, if an officer approaches you when you're in your car, you don't have to talk to them. You don't have to comply. You don't have to do anything. And that's exactly what Renee Good was doing when she died. She didn't feel that she had to stop and talk to the officers or listen to them. She, ignored their orders, smiling, and attempted to drive away. Or, I guess there's some debate about what she was doing. But the point is, she really clearly did not understand the risks involved in what she was doing. And it appears to be trained by these people. There was a signal account that I found in the neighborhood that she belonged to in this Defend the 612 signal network.
The conversations you've been privy to or the training sessions that you attended, is there any sort of explicit discussion of political violence one way or the other? Do they even check the box to say, we don't want to commit acts of violence, but we want to non-comply. We don't want, but you also should not comply with officers, which is sort of oxymoronic. But I just wonder if there's any double talk or there's any statements about political violence.
Well, not from the organizers themselves, but in the signal chats, they're very open about protests where the goal is violence. And I even, at one point, I just sort of, ran an experiment and said, in response to some of these people, nonviolence is really the only approach. And I was heavily criticized for being kicked out of the group.
That's
they've
telling. Yeah.
Yes. And, they posted photos after there's an influencer called Jake Lane who held a protest there. And, it ended up that he had gotten injured and hit in the back of the head. And they celebrated. And they viewed this as, an effective counter-protest that he had been injured.
Yeah, and what do they say about some of the things that we've seen, like with the stuff that you are part of, Defend the 612? Are they part of setting up these checkpoint Charlies, de facto autonomous zones where they're stopping cars and asking for ID and who you are and trying to steal cameras or phones from citizen journalists, attacking some citizen journalists, as you mentioned? Is there discussion about those sorts of activities as well?
There is discussion about the barricades, yes. And then, especially in the last few weeks, people have become kind of hyper paranoid about, who among them is one of them and who is, someone like me who's
an interloper, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And but I mean, what do they say about these barricades and stopping other citizens, trying to take over, square blocks like we saw in places like Seattle and Portland during the George Floyd rioting and looting?
I mean, they don't really see anything wrong with what they do. They're definitely engaged in illegal activity.
Is that part?
They're hiding illegal immigrants.
Oh, they're hiding illegal immigrants too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they're impeding law enforcement operations, hiding fugitives.
Yes.
Yeah, that's illegal.
Sabotage tips, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Do you get privy? Or have you been privy to anything that you refer to law enforcement, like literally plots to injure? You mentioned sabotage, ambush or injure, acts of violence, or is it just more in the general sense of the back and forth and the commentary on these signal groups and so forth?
More of a general sense. I haven't seen any specific tips. They all use nicknames at this point. After Renee Good died, there was a huge influx of people, and they decided to all remain anonymous. And so it's hard to tell who was what.
In your piece at City Journal, you mentioned some outside organizations that participate in the quote-unquote training, including States at the Core, STAC. And STAC has a Chicago connection, co-founded in 2024 by Jill Garvey. Garvey worked at Protect RP, which is Protect Rogers Park, as you write, a Chicago-based group that developed an early and widely emulated ice watching template back in 2017. I'm so glad that Rogers Park agitators were at the forefront of all this. But I mean, it just shows, first of all, how long this sort of thing has been going on at this grassroots level within these populations of professional agitators, and then they flood. Talk about flooding the zone or surging resources. We talk about it from a law enforcement perspective, but the same thing happens and is happening in Minneapolis with respect to this professional agitator cohort.
Yes. Protect RP originated in 2017. They pioneered the ICE model, and now, people involved in that group are exporting it nationwide. And they're operating within one of the largest funding networks in progressive politics, the Hopewell Fund, part of Arabella Advisors, Dark Money Network. They're, very, very well resourced, and, this is just their full-time job at this point is just implementing ICE Watch and these activities and trainings is in as many places as possible.
Have you been, I mean, the Arabella Advisors and the Hopewell Fund and, this web of funding organizations. This is what we've heard general commentary from FBI Director Kash Patel about that and even Scott Besson, we're looking at where the money comes from with these organizations that if they're not domestic terrorist organizations, they're trending in that direction. And even some of what you've described, is trending in that direction. Have you been able to uncover anything more about where the money is coming from, how much of it is public and private versus private, where any sort of federal investigations on the ground in Minnesota are at present?
Unfortunately, no, because they've been, good at concealing that aspect of their business. It's, a fiscally sponsored project through Hopewell Fund, and it's not possible to see who specifically donates to that project.
Is the lieutenant governor there, Flanagan, is she some sort of point person for all this? I mean, she, as I mentioned at the outset, she was carrying on about these training sessions that she's holding to train people to be lawful observers and so on and so forth. The same lingo you're hearing and you're describing your piece about these organizations. What is her role in all this, or is she just a dilettante?
Walz has also said a lot of the same things, used a lot of the same language about watching ICE and observing and documenting and mutual aid. And that also made me wonder about who, what other officials are involved in this. There's, at the local level, there's plenty of officials who are involved, but I submit the equivalent of a FOIA, but I haven't gotten information back on, what their involvement has been in specifically with these organizers who are put together, Defend the 612 or States at the Core.
Well, you're off to a good start. Great reporting, and I hope you keep it up because, it's a more fulsome description of what's happening on the ground with respect to these agitator networks than I've seen anywhere else. Christina Buttons, investigative reporter at the Manhattan Institute. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. And
Christina joined us on Chicago's Morning Answer.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Hey there, Chicagoland. Jeff here from Jeff Buys Your House.